Hey Will, my manager asked me to build out a cadence to help new sellers with outreach. Any pointers?
I'd love to give you some pointers, Greg, but before we walk through building a cadence or a sequence, we first need to understand the reason we actually use them. The simple fact is that most people won't respond to your cold email. The cadence or sequence or whatever you want to call it is designed to provide a process to your follow-ups. A process that ensures you do the follow-ups, but also that they happen in a measurable way. Even if the email is great, you're gonna have to follow up. Inexperienced sellers have a hard time admitting that, or they just accept it and don't seem to do anything about it.
Well, what are we supposed to do about it?
Most sellers that are new to sending personalized emails will try to dump everything that they have into that first email. And they might do a good job researching and personalizing email number one, but it's probably too dense. People spend less than 10 seconds on average reading an email. But even worse, they've said all there is to say. So when they don't get a response, the follow-up becomes stale and unpersonalized. It's no surprise that they're seeing a low reply rate. You've probably sent these first touch emails yourself. It looks something like this. Hey Will, I see the team's on SalesLoft. I imagine you're starting to focus on personalization, like many of our customers. But as you know, there's a lot of problems that come along with personalization. Lavender helps teams avoid those problems by letting your team get personalization data right in their inbox, cutting down their research time, empowering managers with unique data to their teams so they can coach more efficiently, scoring emails based on common mistakes unique to your own data, and more. Worth a chat to learn more?
Sounds like a good start to a cadence.
But what the young sales rep doesn't realize is that the average reply rate for a cold email, not using Lavender of course, is less than 3%. This means what he thought was a good email is now severely limiting his ability to follow up.
You just gave everything away that you have in the first email. This is one of the most common mistakes sellers are making. Not only have you made your email too long, and so your prospect's not likely to read it, but now, when they don't reply, all you have left is generic bump emails to send, which don't do anything except for bother your prospect. When was the last time you sent an email that said, bubbling this back up or following up on my last email, that actually got a positive reply? Unless they're actively trying to buy a product like yours, it's likely that it was never. The other challenge I'm seeing is sellers nail that first cold email. It's personalized, it's short, it's clear, but they abandon best practice in their follow-ups. They get anxious that the prospect didn't reply. They start to assume that the buyer needed more context in order to make a decision. But we're not trying to get a decision. We want to reply. Those follow-ups, you forget that you think about your buyer way more than they're ever thinking about you. They aren't sitting around thinking, oh, I wonder if they'll ever follow up with me. I wonder what that email is going to look like. So these dense follow-ups where sellers are trying to move the deal forward without the buyer are actually tanking your chances of getting success.
So how do you follow up?
Yeah, so first you have to realize that until you get a reply, your only goal is to get a reply. And by the way, when I say get a reply, I don't mean book a meeting. We're trying to start a conversation.
Okay, but I don't want to be annoying and burn a bridge.
There are only a few times when an email cadence becomes annoying. The first, we already covered. It's those bubble ups and any thought emails that are a bit thoughtless. It's lazy. And lazy outreach is annoying. The second is when you just send way too many emails over a short stretch of time. If you're sending another email every month to check in, see how things are going, that can get annoying. Remember, if you have a purpose for your reaching out, you won't come across as annoying. You'll come across as intentional. But you also have to realize if you reach out 5 times and you don't get a response, they're likely not interested. You really don't need to keep hitting them up. It's also really important not to be one-dimensional. Don't limit yourself to one channel. Reaching out across email, LinkedIn DM, phone, and other channels can do a few things. First, not all prospects prefer the same method of outreach. I know this sounds wild from someone who runs an email company, but while most people like to respond to emails, someone might be much more responsive to their social DMs. All channels are not going to be equal to every prospect. Second, reaching out across multiple channels is going to create this sense of urgency. Many times a prospect may see an initial email, sit on it, and they might forget about it. Reaching out in another channel might remind them that you're still waiting for that response. It also shows a level of work and research that went into your outreach. You're showing them that you're not just another person on an automated list. For most, this is going to instill a level of reciprocity that gets the prospect to reply, even if that's simply a no thanks. And by the way, even a negative reply is better than no reply because it allows you to stop wasting your time with a prospect that isn't interested.
But how long should the cadence go? And, how should I space out my outreach?
Contrary to what most sellers think and do, your cadence should be a sprint, not a marathon. When you're reaching out with purpose, you don't need a month or multiple months of emails to start a conversation. So let's walk through a template for a cadence that can be used to thoughtfully engage with your prospect without burning any bridges. I'll just cover the email parts, but you can imagine repurposing some of these steps or adding steps to bring in multiple channels. So on day one, you're going to send the initial cold email. Remember, provide context, have a purpose for reaching out. We're going to use and reuse this purpose throughout the outreach. The framework for the first email is simple. You're going to make an observation. You're going to tie that observation to a problem or an insight based on that observation. Layer in some credibility as you lead into what you do and give them a taste of what you do. And then ultimately, you're going to open it up for a conversation. Let me give you an example of what this looks like. Hey, Jan, Sarah mentioned the frontline sellers have been struggling to personalize and touch enough accounts. Given your team's growth, I imagine you're trying to find volume. We help the reps at Clary 2x their reply rates. They're also writing twice as fast with our AI sales email coach. Worth a chat? Will.
Okay, that makes total sense, but what comes next?
Yeah, so if that doesn't prompt a reply, you're going to send between 3 to 5 follow-ups over the next 12 to 30 days. Let's say they didn't reply. On day 2 or 3 with no reply, you bump the original email by sending a helpful article that hits on the hypothetical problem you've uncovered. Here's what that might look like. Joan, do you read Outreach's blog? Given what Sarah mentioned to me about personalization, I thought you'd find it interesting. The VP of Sales Dev at Segment wrote about how she scaled her team to a $3.2 billion acquisition. They did it without even using canned templates. Check it out. Any thoughts on my last note? I opened it up by signaling that I was sending a helpful resource in a conversational way. I then explained why they would find it interesting. I shared the article, and then I nudged them to reread my last note.
And when should I start reaching out on multiple channels?
After, if you're gonna wait a few days to send the follow-up, use other channels sooner, but if you're gonna follow up to the email with another email quickly, then maybe wait to add those new channels until after the second email. The goal isn't to overwhelm them. You're just looking to show them that you're a real person, trying to reach out to them about what you think is a real problem. And let's say they don't reply to that second email. We've put a lot of work in already, so now it's time to use a bump email. And no, not the generic bump email that we've all grown to hate. In a personalized outreach, we're never gonna send a bubbling this back up or just checking in. Between day 5 to 8, we can send a thoughtful bump. Notice I said thoughtful. Reuse that context from our research. It's a simple ad, but it's gonna look something like this. Hey Joan, given Sarah's notes and your growth, I thought this would be worth a discussion. Did you have any feedback on my last note?
Okay, I see how that is more thoughtful than my typical bump email.
Exactly, and there are many ways we can do a thoughtful bump. For example, you can also use what we call a clarification bump. Looks like this. Hey Joan, given your growing sales team, I thought Sarah's comments might be a priority. Thought I should clarify. We've built a sales email coach that sits right inside the inbox. High growth teams get great results and peace of mind. You get a much better sense for what your reps are sending without hovering over their shoulder. Think this could help your team? This email scratches that context itch that a lot of sellers feel they need to scratch. You're basically coming clean. Since you're doing everything thoughtfully, people are going to be much more open to hearing you out. But let's say they don't reply. Now, we're close to the finish line. On day 12 or 14, you can send a referral email. This isn't the annoying, is there anyone better for me to talk to? You do the work for the buyer. You give them a name and you explain why you think they might be the right person. So it looks like this. Hey, Joan, would Will be a better person to talk to about email coaching software? I saw he might manage tech from your careers page.
I love that. We're again showing the prospect that we're doing the work ahead of time.
And let's be real, if you don't get a reply after that, you're probably not going to get one. It's time to end the cadence. We give it closure typically after day 20, but never, and I mean never, send a tacky breakup email. Let's be honest, nobody gets a breakup email where someone asks if an alligator ate them and thinks it's cute. It's annoying. You need to be strategic with these breakup emails. Think of the breakup differently. It's not a breakup. Think of it more as a bye for now. Send something a little bit more like this. Hey Joan, I've reached out a few times. Given you're hiring so many reps, I thought our email coach could help. I'm gonna chalk it up to my timing being off. Feel free to correct me, but I will stop my outreach for now.
And that works?
Yep, it does. You've stated that you've reached out, you've explained why you did, and you've admitted that you missed the mark. You didn't blame the lack of response on them, and you set them up to correct you. People love to correct people. All right, last thought. This is a simplified version of a cadence for a decision maker. We referenced Sarah in a few of the emails who would ideally be an internal influencer to Joan's decision. Ideally, you'll be able to pull in multiple participants, make the outreach even more relevant that way.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Thanks, Will.
Always happy to help, Greg. And for anyone watching that has a question, you can submit them to email feedback@lavender.ai, and we'll address them on a future episode.